Okay, let us discuss more about the outcomes of student learning. OBE has three important characteristics. These are student-centered, second, faculty-driven, and lastly is meaningful. Now, obviously, when we say student-centered, our focus is on the student learning outcomes, or what we call the SLO. Now, faculty-driven, this encourages the faculty or the teacher to be more responsible in teaching, assessing the program outcomes, and motivating the participation from the students. And how come it became meaningful? Meaningful because this OBE will provide us the data that will serve as guide to the teacher in making valid and continuing improvement in instruction and even the assessment activities. So always bear in mind, the outcomes-based education has three important characteristics: student-centered, faculty-driven, and meaningful. Now, to implement outcomes-based education, we have three important procedures. First one, let us identify the educational objective of a certain course or subject. And be sure that these educational objectives should be also stated on the point of view of the teacher. But remember, these objectives are broad goals that the subject or the course expect to achieve, and it also defines the general terms of knowledge, skills, and attitude that the teacher will help the student to attain. That's it. It can be expressed in using the verb as to develop, to provide, to enhance, and even to inculcate. These are sample of the verbs that we can use as far as the educational objectives are concerned. Now, after we identify that, let us try to list all the learning outcomes specific for each subject or course objective. Now, as I've said a while ago, the learning outcomes are always stated as concrete active verbs. Like, for example, to demonstrate, to explain, to differentiate. Now, this kind of verbs, a very good source of these learning outcomes, can be obtained through the use of the Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. And as far as the Bloom's taxonomy of education objectives are concerned, we have three important domains that we have to consider. First, cognitive. When we say cognitive, it refers to the mental skills. It refers to the knowledge, such as remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, or synthesizing or creating. That covers the cognitive domain, where we will be discussing it later. But when we say psychomotor domain, this refers to the skills. It includes both the manual or physical skills, which proceed from mental activities and range from the simplest to the complex, such as observing, and then practicing, and then adapting, and then later on innovating. And lastly is the affective domain, which is also known as the attitude, which refers to the growth in feelings or emotions from the simplest behavior to the most complex, such as receiving, then we have responding, then valuing, and then organizing, and lastly is internalizing. Okay? or that is what we call characterization. So after you have the educational objective, you have listed your learning outcomes, we have to drop now our outcomes assessment procedure. This will determine the degree to which our students are attaining the desired learning outcomes. It will identify for every outcome the data that will be gathered, which will guide the selection of the assessment tools to be used and at what point assessment will be done. So take note, your assessment tool should be appropriate. No? It should be appropriate and match your learning outcomes together with your educational objectives. Is it clear? Okay. So let's proceed now to the two kinds of outcomes of education. Now, they can be classified into immediate or deferred outcomes. When we say immediate outcomes, these are your competencies. And when I talk of competencies, I am talking about of the KSA. KSA. K stands for knowledge, S stands for skills, and A stands for attitude. So all these competencies and skills acquired upon completion of any subject, any grade level, or any segment of the program, or even the program itself, that is considered immediate outcomes. What are the examples of this? Your graduation after the program, when you passed your licensure examination, when you have your initial job placement, or any skills, abilities that you can do. Ability to communicate, ability to compute, ability to present, ability to identify any object. So whatever your ability and skills that you can show and demonstrate upon completion of a certain subject, level, and program, they are considered immediate outcomes. Now, what about the deferred outcomes? Now, these are your abilities, or the ability that you have to apply when you are applying your cognitive, your affective, and psychomotor skills competencies in various situations many years after the completion of the subject, the grade level, or even the degree program. So it will take 4 to 5 years. When I'm talking about the institutional outcome, it is also referring to the deferred outcome. 4 to 5 years after graduation is the manifestation. So what are the examples of this? Let's say your promotion in your job. You become the principal, the superintendent, the key teacher. So every time there will be a promotion, that will be a part of your deferred outcomes. Your success in your professional practice or occupation is being manifested in your deferred outcomes. Even your awards and recognitions are being considered. Is everything clear about immediate outcomes and deferred outcomes? Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. Now, these are examples of program educational objectives of education programs. I think I have discussed this already during the orientation, and there's no need for me to read it again. But I just want to emphasize the different verbs that we have used here, like articulate, demonstrate, facilitate, develop, apply. We have also practice, pursue. All these verbs are considered active. They are precise and concrete, and here we are observing the SMART. Okay, next one. For the Bachelor of Elementary Education, the student outcomes are, meaning these are the qualities, the characteristics of the graduates that we are expecting to demonstrate. And let us read the first one. Demonstrate in-depth understanding of the diversity of the learners in various learning areas. Or we have here, manifest a desire to continuously pursue personal and professional development. So all of these student outcomes are the outcomes that we expect our student to show or demonstrate after graduation. Now, for the BSc Ed or the Bachelor of Secondary Education, we have also some student outcomes here. Sample: possess broad knowledge of language and literature for effective learning. Or they can even use English as a local language in a multilingual context as it applies to the teaching of language and literature. So, meaning each program, whether it is a Bachelor of Secondary Education, Bachelor of Elementary Education, Bachelor of Early Childhood Education, we have or they have their own respective student outcomes. The expectations that we want each student to demonstrate after graduation. Okay, now, what about the learning outcomes? How are we going to create the learning outcomes of the following courses? We have here the teaching profession, the social dimensions of education, the assessment of student learning, and even the principles of teaching, and also the rest. They have their own learning outcomes. What do we want our student to demonstrate upon the completion of the subject or even every topic of the subject? Okay. Let us continue. Here we are. Let's say for teaching profession, the student learning outcome is this. The students will be able to conceptualize the true essence of teaching. Our verb here is conceptualized. Okay, now what about for social dimension? The students will be able to characterize the different social science theories. Our verb is characterize. For assessment of student learning, the students will be able to analyze the relationship of measurement, assessment, and evaluation. So our verb is analyze. And for the principles of teaching, the students will be able to value the importance of the principles of teaching. And our verb here is value. Now, what do we notice about the different verbs that we have used? Conceptualize, characterize, analyze, and value. Don't you notice that all of them belong to higher order thinking skills, meaning they are in the higher level of complexity. Let us take the number 3 example for assessment of student learning. We have mentioned here that the students will be able to analyze. So the term analyze, how are we going to change it into a lower level thinking skill? Let's say, for example, we are just after with a simple recall, with a simple knowledge. So maybe we can just change the term analyze into define, define or describe. So the students will be able to define or describe the relationship of measurement, assessment, and evaluation. What about in higher, from simple knowledge or recall or remembering, let's move to understanding. So we can say that the students will be able to explain or even differentiate the relationship of measurement, assessment, and evaluation. So this is what I mean. Each verb in its respective level changes based on the hierarchy of complexity. From the point of view of LOTS or lower order thinking skills, it all started from remembering or the simple recall, that is already knowledge, moving up to application. So down to knowledge, we have comprehension, and then application. They belong to lower order thinking skills. Okay, but if you go up to analysis, which is analyzing, and then moving into evaluating, and then synthesis or creating, this time you are testing the higher order thinking of skills of students, meaning you are trying to develop the analytic and critical thinking of the students. And that makes it balanced. When you give an assessment, you have to see to it that you are considering both the higher and the lower order thinking skills. And at the same time, consider also the three domains. You have to consider the cognitive, the affective, and psychomotor. In the principles of teaching, when we talk about a value, automatically it was or it is what? It is on the part of the affective domain. But when you are thinking of the physical skills, the manual, now you are dealing with psychomotor skills. So these are the examples of the learning outcomes for the following courses. Okay, look at this. The three types of learnings by Benjamin Blooms. As I mentioned a while ago, the cognitive for the knowledge, the psychomotor for the skills, and affective for attitude. Actually, there are two versions, no? Two versions of cognitive domain. The old one and the revised one. From the point of view of the old version, Benjamin Blooms used the nouns, starting from the knowledge, moving to comprehension, and then to application, and then to analysis, and then to synthesis, and lastly is the evaluation. But with the new version, which was given by the students, the former student of Bloom, with the name of Lauren Anderson, he was the one who reviewed the cognitive domain objectives and tried to make some important changes. And the two most prominent changes that he made is this. The first one, you will notice that from the lowest level, which is originally knowledge, turns to become remembering. And then the comprehension, understanding. The application, applying. The analysis, analyzing. And there was also a slight change with the order. It is no longer the synthesis, but rather it is now followed by evaluation, which turns to be evaluating. And then the last one at the topmost is the synthesis, which is just the same as creating. Now, my question is this. Why is it that there is a need to change the noun into verbs? Do you have any idea the reason why? The main reason for that is this. Definitely using the verb instead of noun, it will make your students more engaged. More engaged with the activity, with the thing that they have to do, because it is purely action. And when we act, we are inactive. We are doing things with mobility. Okay? And how come there was a change in the position? Why? Because in evaluating, you just mainly make judgment. You justify things. You classify things. Okay? But what we need is you need to create new things after the evaluation. And it will be continuously being observed. Creating new ideas, creating new concepts, creating new values, creating new principles, and so on and so forth. And it will just be a continuous cycle from the simple remembering of a fact. We used to understand it, we apply it, we analyze it, and when you analyze, you break down the concept, and when you evaluate, try to see which is good, which is excellent, which is not desirable, which is desirable, which is right, which is wrong. And then later on, you just choose and try to create something new ideas. Okay. Now, let me discuss a bit, what is the meaning of each part with the example. Let's say remembering. I just want to use a simple example about the agreement of the subject and the verb. When you say remembering, you just define or give the meaning of the subject and the verb. That is only remembering. But when you try to understand it, you can explain already the meaning of the subject and the verb based from your own words, based from your own explanation, because we do understand already the meaning. And when you are about to apply it, you will just write an example of a subject and the verb to form a sentence. That's already an application. And when you try to analyze, you were given sentences, and from the given sentences, find out which is the subject and which is the predicate. So that is a part of the analysis. It can also be here, which is also a part of evaluating, where you can say or find out if that sentence is really a complete sentence or just only a phrase. Let's say I gave you a word. I said, go. You might be telling me, Mom, it's not a sentence. It's just only one word with a verb. There is no subject. But that is not that's not proper, because if you will just try to look at it, it is also a sentence since it is an imperative sentence. And if it is an imperative sentence, there is a subject, and the subject is automatically you. So you go. You as the subject and go as the predicate. So that is also a part of the analysis and also a part of evaluating whether it is a sentence or not, or even if the subject agree with the verb, no, as a part of the predicate. Until the teacher will be telling you, oh, now you can write now a short paragraph and try to underline your subject once and your predicate twice. And then you can form a story, a poem, or anything that is already a part of new composition which is creating. From the simple remembering as the lower level of complexity, you move into the higher level, the highest level, which is creating. Is it clear? Did you understand the explanation? Okay, so let's proceed now to the next domain. The next domain is psychomotor domain. Here we just have 4 steps or 4 levels. Everything started when you are trying to learn something. Like, for example, you do not know how to use a certain gadget, like a new cell phone. Now, the first thing that you have to do is to observe someone who knows how to use it. So that is observing. You are using your sense of sight. You are using your different senses to observe. And then later on, you try to hold the gadget and try to imitate what the person who is teaching you or the knowledgeable other on what he is doing. You will be also imitating it. And with the presence of your knowledgeable other, you will try to practice it until in your practicing, you try to perfect it, reaching the precision or try to be precise, following the step by step procedure. Once you're there, practicing makes things perfect, isn't it? So you will be adapted to it. Even with the absence of the knowledgeable others, you can already operate, navigate the new gadget that you have because you know already the skills. And your psychomotor skills have been already developed. We have another version of this, what we have here, the IMPAN. IMPAN. First one is the letter I, which is simply imitating. You just imitate the action of someone or somebody for you to learn. Second is manipulation, when you are starting to hold and to act already the things others are doing. And then we have the P, precision. Step by step, you want to do it, to perfect it, and to do it right with the guidance of the knowledgeable others. And then the letter N, articulation. You try to combine all your skills. There's already a coordination. a coordination of your body, a coordination of your eyes, a coordination of your senses. So meaning in this, you try to develop, starting to develop fully your learning. And then the last one, the N, is naturalization. When you are already adapted to the system, it is already a part of your system already. Okay. Any question about the psychomotor domain? Okay, so let's proceed now to the last one, which is the affective domain, touching your heart. Affective hit your values. Now, these are the different steps or stages that we have to consider. First one is receiving. Receiving. Now, let us try to have one value, the value of honesty. Now, in our case, you have signed already your honor pledge. And in that case, the thing that you have to develop is to be honest. And how are we going to develop that honesty? In the first place, everything started from home. Your parents are your first teachers, and they are the one teaching you the good values. Your parent, most especially your mother, will tell you, Anak, you have to be honest. You have to tell the truth all the time. No, you try to be trustworthy. And anything that you find that you are not, it is not yours, you have to bring it back to the owner. And even in the schools, try to avoid cheating. Because there is a principle that it's better for me to get 0 than to cheat. Because it is your conscience that will tell you that you are doing the wrong thing. So honesty, just receiving from what your parent had told you. Now it can be from other people. You can also get this from reading articles or watching television, that you have learned these different values like honesty. And how are you going to respond to it to the second level? Now in responding, you might ask questions, you might follow the rules, you might read a lot of things about that virtue, about that values. In that case, you're already responding. Now how are you going to value it? Once you are starting to practice it. I am always telling the truth. I am not practicing cheating. I am returning everything that I found which are not mine, which is the owner. I have to find them. So that is valuing. Now how do you organize it? In you have to set your own priorities. My priority is to be honest. And to be honest is to do it, to practice it, to demonstrate it, and even ask others to tell and share to them the importance of honesty. And reading more, and even attending seminars about this virtue. And try to do it together with others. That is a part of organizing. Until finally you will find out that particular virtue, which is honesty, is already in your system, and that is what we call internalizing or characterization. You can now officially declare and tell to yourself that I am really an honest person. Even though no one will see me, I can assure you that I am already an honest person. From simply receiving what my parents told me, and I responded to it, I value it, and I organized my priority. Now, I have earned that particular value, honesty within me. So that is only one sample. You've got so many values and virtues that you can develop by yourselves. Okay? Now here are samples of the different verbs that you can use. I know it's a bit small, but we can have this in, we can try to see more examples in the website, and I'm also giving you some samples of this. Now you will notice on the first layer are the different levels of complexities, and then on the second layer you have the sample learning outcomes, and at the outermost layer you can see the different forms of assessment. everything should be properly aligned, no? They are aligned with one another. So this is for cognitive domain. The other one here is the verb will based on the revised Bloom's taxonomy of affective domain. So values naman to. So we have receive, respond, value, organize, and internalize with the verbs that you can use on the respective level. And lastly, we have the verb will based on the revised Bloom's taxonomy, which is psychomotor domain, where you can develop your manual and physical skills, starting by simply imitating, and then you try to manipulate, and then you have to practice it to make it perfect, and that is precision, and try to coordinate for articulation, and it will be embodied to yourself. That will also already part of your naturalization. Is everything clear? Okay. Now, there are 5 important principles that you have to consider in assessing student learning outcomes. First, be sure that your student learning starts with the institution's mission and core values. Second, we can work best this assessment when the program has clear statement of objectives, aligned again with the institutional missions and core values. And this outcomes-based assessment should focus on the student activities that will be relevant after schooling concludes. Meaning, don't teach your students things that they cannot be used, that they will not give, that the student will not be given any benefit at all. Teach them something that are relevant and significant that can be used in after schooling. They can apply it to make it more significant on the part of the students. Assessment also requires attention not only on the outcomes, but of course, we have to give equally importance to the activities and experiences that will lead to the attainment of these learning outcomes. Hindi lang tayo nakafocus sa outcomes. Now, we have to know the different activities and experiences that we have to give to our student, and they should be aligned to the outcomes. And lastly, the assessment works best when it is continuous, when it is ongoing, and not episodic, kung kailan lang gagawin. Remember, assessment is a continuous process. It can be before, it can be during, or it can be after. It should be cumulative, meaning continuous, no? Additional, and additional. Because improvement is best achieved through a linked series of activities done over time in instructional cycle. Is everything clear? I hopefully that you learned something from our discussion, and you can learn more about the domains when we will be discussing these 3 domains and having an application by writing a sample or samples of learning outcomes, mainly with a different level of complexities in the 3 domains such as cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So by now, hope you learned something for today's discussion, and God bless you and have a nice day. Bye!